Alright everyone, so today I'm actually going to be teaching you guys how to make your own functions. They're all C programs that you use, which is pretty much like every program you use, has more than just a main function because you need stuff to do things on its own. I mean, you're not going to want to make a main function that does everything. I mean, it's even impossible. You can't have a main function calculate all this input and stuff yet still not use any other function. And so there are some actually really interesting things when you do this. And the first thing is you have to define your function. Now, if you've used the K&R book, which is actually written by the creators of the C language, then you've probably seen some of their code in which they actually have put the function name before the main function and before they actually define that before they define that method, or that before they define that function. My bad, not method. And the reason for that is to make sure that when the compiler takes your code and starts compiling it, it'll know what order and like what syntax you use that function in. So if you were to do something like you have a function fs, then it would know it takes one parameter down here. However, that's not how you would actually define one. You wouldn't you wouldn't define it like this. I'll explain how you actually define it in a second. But it does it so that way it knows, okay, that's how you use it. This is when it's being used, and that means that because it's not actually defined up here, that the instructions for it are below. But I'm actually not going to do it that way. I'll show you how you do it like that, but I don't want you to do it that way because if you forget to define it earlier on, you get some weird errors. And it's just easier to make sure that your main function is the last function. That way everything's defined above it and all the instructions are above. Sorry if you guys heard my phone, I'm sure you probably did. But anyways, here we go. What you would want to do to define a function is just do int, or whatever it's returning, space, and then the name of it. Now, just like variables, you can start them with pretty much everything except for some special characters. So, you can use an underscore, but avoid like these. So, let's just call this one test. And we'll say that it takes an integer x, comma, integer y. Now in here is where the function will actually take the arguments, like what type of arguments it'll take. Here we're defining variables to be used in the function int x and int y. Like in the main function here we said void. Void just means that there's nothing. Nothing is taken, so there are no variables taken right there. And as you see here, it means that we have to return a number because we said integer main, so main is returning integer, and we say return 0 right here. So this is also going to return a number, however we're actually going to be using variables here. And that's pretty much what these are. You can also do like char a, and that would work too. You don't have to use integers. It doesn't have to take the same variables as what it returns. However, you're probably not going to want to return a character and take two integer values, or vice versa. So that's basically how you would define it there. Here's how we actually give it the instruction set, is by giving it these curly braces. Now, by convention, you would always want to start your braces on the line underneath it. Some people will do it like this, but I just find that it looks ugly that way. I like it better this way. But again, that's up to you. It's not an actual needed standard. So in here, we can actually make all of our stuff. So let's define a third value z, and it'll be of an integer type. Now int z is going to be equal to x times y. So we can actually do return z, or my bad, z equals x times y, return z. That's what I was trying to say, although I mistyped return. Okay, there we go. So that will actually run. Now in here we're going to have to use the function. So in here, inside of our main function, we'll say test parentheses 5 and 3 outside of their semicolon. I hope this is making sense to you guys. This is why we covered variables and all that stuff beforehand. So awesome. But if you guys have any questions, make sure you ask them, because this could get pretty confusing. So let's actually test this out. Now that we've put 5 and 3 in here, 5 goes first, it's integer x, 3 is integer y. This should work fine. So compile and run. And compiling, forgot. We want to printf this. Otherwise, it's just going to return it, and the output's actually not going to go anywhere. So put the function inside of a printf statement, and then just say %d like that. I forgot, because I was doing Python earlier, and Python's awesome. Anyways, compile and run, and boom, we get 15. Now, is that right? Well, 5 times 3 is 15. So our function actually works. It's returning the correct value, and we found out how to put it somewhere. Now, if we really wanted to, we could actually just do like return 0 and then print f z like that. However, that's kind of ugly. You shouldn't ever really need to use a printf outside of a main function, unless you shouldn't use it unless you really need to. Not that you should only need to, but you should only do that if you need to. Sorry, my words are being mixed up. Let me try that again. Okay, so you should only put a printf statement in a function if you need to. Try to always make it so that you only use printfs in your main function, because the other ones normally will not actually need a printf. That's what I was going for. Awesome. Okay, so we'll switch that back to Z. Now let's go over this one more time and make sure that you guys completely understand how this works. So we have this, which is the return type, just like how we would define a variable x or a variable z, for example, that is an integer. We say int, and that says, okay, it's going to return that type. We could also say short for a short integer. So the first is the return type, the second is the name of the function. Now then we would put parentheses in here defining where we start the variables at, and then inside of those parentheses we put which variables we need and what type each of those variables are. And also something I don't think I said before is that you want to divide these with a comma so that you don't get any issues. Then you start with your curly braces here, and everything works out fine. Remember to close it. And as long as your instructions in here are good, which you should probably know how to do that because we've done that before in other videos, then everything should work out fine. Now, let's cut and paste this below the main function, and I want to show you guys something. So what if we were to go here and do int test int x int y semicolon and compile and run this. Now we didn't give it any instructions at first, so what's going on here? That's really interesting. Well, the thing is, it actually says that's the instructions, that's how you would use the function, but it doesn't tell you what happens when you use the function. So what it actually does is it looks through here, says, okay, there's the function, we'll remember that that's how you use it, goes down here and says, oh, here's that function, and it's actually being used, so let's see how to use it, because we weren't told before, and then it goes down here and says, okay, here are the instructions to use it. Now, if we were to get rid of this line, save, whoa, accidentally made that bigger, save, compile, and run, we still get 15. So what's the importance of putting it beforehand? When you get into some other things like structures and arrays and things like that, it gets a bit more complicated than what you'd think. And it's really important to always just make sure excuse me, that your function is somehow defined before it's used in the main function, because you can get errors. This will not cause it because this is really simple. The way that it compiles and looks through everything is fine. but you'll see in later examples, because I always want you guys to mess around with code. Feel free to do that. Don't just expect me to teach you everything, because there are some things I won't think about because they're not in books. So always play around with the code. That's what most of the books I read tell me to do, and that's how I learn a lot. Just play with the code, and if you come up with an error that's really weird, and it's because it happens when you try to run a function, check to make sure that it comes before the main function. And if it doesn't, put it in front of it and see what happens, and remember what error you got before. It's very important to do that, and you can learn you can learn far more from that than what I could teach you. Also, things might be a little different with your compiler. I did not think of that in the past videos, but there have been times where someone has like a really old compiler and some things just don't work right. And that's a really rare case, but one person told me that before, not on one of my videos, but on a forum when I was trying to help them out. And it turns out it was a problem with their compiler. So try to keep an update compiler as well. So this is kind of like a tip video as well. But yeah, functions. Hope you guys learned how to use them, and if you have any questions or comments, leave them in the comment section below or PM me. Subscribe if you want to see future videos, like the video if you liked it, and if you really loved the video, favorite it, because that helps me out more than you could imagine. Also watch the video like 10 more times while you go somewhere else, because then I get more views. Anyways, thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. I'll see you later.